live.
Cool. We're on. How you doing, buddy?
This is great. Look at this. It's a packed house. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We opened the show up last Friday for Cedric, and it was a packed house here all night long. We had a great DJ here.
Yes.
People were dancing. It was spilled out onto the street, so the fun continues today. And I want to welcome everybody for being here, and welcome Cedric, and thank you for being my featured artist this month. I met Cedric about 7 years ago when I moved to Cincinnati, and we were both with Gallery 708. And when I opened up the gallery here in 2021, Cedric was one of the first people I called to arrange a coffee with. And this was sometime in the late summer of 2021, I think.
Yes.
And we met up in Clifton, and he said, "Yeah, I'd love to do a show. It'll have to wait till 2024. Just who Cedric is and his popularity and his notoriety here in the city. So I like to say he's the hardest working man in show business. If you're in the art scene here in Cincinnati, you know that's true. And Cedric is everywhere all the time. He's prolific. He's an amazing artist. He's also a great citizen to the city, which I hope we get to talk about at some length here, because I really admire that aspect about what you do and what you give to our community. Just as a little introduction, I'm just going to read some things off here. Cedric is a Cincinnati-based artist, best known for blending surrealism and representational abstraction into his work. He's a UC DAP grad and was also studied abroad at the Glasgow School of Art in Scotland when he was a young guy. Sounds like he had some fun there. He's influenced by architecture, music, and nature, and and that sort of comes out in a wide range of forms, geometric compositions, curvilinear forms. He's exhibited at the Contemporary Art Center here in Cincinnati, the Weston Art Gallery, the Columbus Art Museum, the Dayton Art Institute, the Taft Museum of Art, and now Studio Kroner. I would like to start this with a quote that I'm doing some research for this that is from you. It's a great quote, and I think it'll be sort of set the stage a little bit. You're quoted as saying, in the internet world, "With my art, I intend for the personal to become the universal amongst groups of people as we celebrate individual freedom, find our likenesses, and harmonize our differences." Do you still stand by that statement?
Yes, I did. I can go with that. Vote for me.
I love that quote. I wish I had said it. And it's from everything I know, it's true. And you know, and you really see yourself as a bridge builder. And I'd like to just sort of kick off the conversation talking about that concept for you and building bridges and how that came about for you and where that started.
Well, I think it all starts with, I don't want to say it all starts with art education, but it starts basically with my father, you know, wanting his children, my brother and I, to be able to walk into any situation, in any part of town, at any moment in time, and feel like we belong. Putting us in situations where we're the only ones of color, if that's a politically correct word or whatever, being in certain areas or certain parts of town. He just stressed that so much, you know, when we're sitting at the table, and he was just, you know, I want you to feel like you belong anywhere and everywhere. That's, you know, so half my family is Catholic, half my family is Baptist on my dad's side. And it's just one of the principles we live by. And so in the arts, I guess, I want people to feel welcomed. I want people to feel like they belong. I want art to be accessible. I want art to be accessible to all people, all cultures, at all times. So just having that feeling that I belong anywhere at any point in time, I want others to feel that way when it comes to my art. And art education has allowed me to be able to do that, to go into different schools, neighborhoods, areas, and to interact with people I would not normally interact with, and for me to interact with communities that are not used to the arts or whatever. This has been fun. It's been great. It's been a journey. So I stand by that, yes.
That's awesome. And one of the things I left out in your introduction is your work with in city murals. You've got a number of murals around town, and also the Black Lives mural at City Hall that
Yes.
was put together that you worked on. And as far as I can tell, watching it from afar, we're sort of orchestrating a lot of it back in, was that 2021 or 22?
That was 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it was 2020. It's a while ago, but there's been different stages of it, repainting it, and now we're going to be actually repaving the street. We're not going to be, but the city's going to be doing it, and we're going to come in with new, fresh designs or revamped designs, and for Blink. So Black Art Speaks is now a part of Blink, and we're really excited about it, and it's going to be amazing. So the big, Blink begins, I believe, on the 16th or 17th, but the big extravaganza of our participation in it will be on the 19th, October 19th, that evening.
You'll be actually painting.
Well, we'll have everything completed,
You will, okay.
but then the light show and all this other stuff as well.
Okay.
So it should be cool. It should
Very
be cool. I'm excited.
Backing up a little bit, just talk about, you mentioned your father and him and his approach to making sure you're comfortable everywhere you go. Tell us a little bit more about how, from childhood on, where Art got introduced to you, what your education is,
Yeah.
how that worked for you.
Yeah, all around the house, my dad had these books, these Time Life series of books. The Life and Times of Peter Paul Rubens, The Life and Time of Van Gogh, The Life and Time of Picasso. So, and my dad, he worked for mercantile stores, which was McGowan's, basically. And so he would get, he was a salesman for the company, outside sales, inside sales. And so he would get, discounts on, books and, whatever they were selling at the time. But more importantly, really gorgeous prints, okay? And so images of Van Gogh and the flowers and the sunflowers. And I remember there's this Alberto Giacometti. You guys might be familiar with him as a sculptor. Well, he was also a drawer. He would, of course, draw his sculptures, but he did these really intricate line work. And he had this one piece of this woman sitting in a chair, and it would just scare me to death. I used to have nightmares as a child of this woman coming to life and just like, beating down the basement door and chasing me. It was just a big part of my childhood, I think. And so beauty and fear, anxiety. I don't know. Maybe I'll do something conceptual with it, in the future. But that's kind of childhood I grew up with. My dad would always draw at the dinner table. Draw cars and he would draw these cars that would be the cars that you would see later on in the 90s and the 2000s. Very futuristic, very cool kind of stuff. He was the first to teach me to kind of like lighten my stroke, not be so heavy-handed. But I remember my first sense of understanding art was also this idea of foreground and background being brought up to the same level of intensity. I wouldn't shrink if my forms would just go off the page. I wouldn't try to make them fit within the negative space. I was like, it's off the page, whatever, And I remember my first painting moment. We all had these moments where we watched Bob Ross and all this stuff, and it's some might say it's lowbrow to bring it up. I don't care. I just don't care. I remember not having the background of my piece finished first, so I remember doing my own watercolor or poster paint landscape and just going back and forth with it, not in just one day, but over periods of time, learning that this art process takes time and it's just something you build upon one day out of the week, 2 days out of the week, every day. I put off this, I will work on something else. It was just this work ethic, you know what I mean? It's just like that I enjoy.
So you actually had the idea of iterative process even as a young kid.
Yeah, I guess 7 years old, yeah, but it's what you like, it's what you do.
I mean, a lot of kids will, if they don't get it right, they'll just like, I'm no good.
Yeah.
As opposed to I'll get better, because there's a lot of comparative thinking that goes on at that point.
Yeah. But I think, and I really feel sorry for, I do. I can only imagine maybe the stress that other young artists, kids might feel, on the internet, these, my kid painted this and, and my kid did this. And I could just see the pressure and anxiety that might impede somebody from not wanting to take it a step further. I'm so blessed. Thank God I didn't have to go through that, or I was too into myself to care. I mean, I know, so, whatever. I mean, love yourself. You can't love anybody else before that.
So when your dad when you were doing these drawings, would he critique them?
Yeah, he would. I would do very kind of gory comic book stuff, but he would just, the proportions would be off. The proportions would be really off, but because I'd be into maybe musculature or the armature of somebody's wearing, so I'll make the chest bigger, and I'll have these designs and patterns and interesting things happening within the torso of the body, because I wanted to capture certain elements of patterns, and detail was always important to me. I remember my dad, he had a collection of rugs that he would get from, not from the Orient, but interpreted as Orient rugs or Asian rugs. And I would just stare at the patterns. They'd become a part of my play set while I'm working with, these forts I was creating. It was just art was just always there. I would notice my father would change a floral arrangement. He'll move this vase over here, but then put this piece of sculpture here and rearrange the pillows. I would just see these things. Yeah. And he would do this all the time. He should have been an interior designer. But I loved being around that. And Mom was always encouraging, and I remember my dad always drawing. Before there's a lot of ready-made stuff that a teacher can buy from J.R. Green. If J.R. Green, I don't think they're around anymore. But I loved that place. But there's a lot of places like that back in the day, and there was a lot of ready-made stuff. But before there was a lot of ready-made stuff, my dad would draw, kind of prompts, teaching prompts for my mother if she would teach, as she would teach, stuff like that. So, yeah, it was very cool. Very, very good guy. Good guy. Love him.
And so, when you were in high school, were you taking art classes all the time?
Yeah. And that, it was one of those things where I could have, been in choir, or towards the end it was like choir or art, I was like, okay, art, I'm not going to sing and dance. My brother was good at that. My brother was a good performer. He got into politics. He's just all around a great guy and really talented. But he had that coordination of singing, dancing, performing, acting. He could do it all. And they thought I could. Mr. Henley, the music teacher, who's great because he would, I was a baritone, but I understood the parts of the work. I just love that idea of this, everybody being so average, but us coming together as long as you stay in your lane and making something magical. He was such a great teacher. And, so he tried to force me into the dance ensemble thing, and I just couldn't, I didn't have the coordination, it was horrible. Like last night, there was a big event at 21C where Dance Revolution was trying to teach the audience how to do the electric slide, or a complicated version of the electric slide. I just couldn't, looked at my wife and you go do it. But, so I just went into art, and art was my thing, and it was always my thing. And Mr. Adam Walter, his wife works for Artswave. He was my art instructor. His first year was my senior year, and we gave him hell, man. But God love him, he was cool. He was really cool.
So, and you didn't go down that avenue, but your work is so lyrical. There's a lot of musicality in your work. Do you feel like that was seeping into it, or how does music factor into your experience?
I think there's patterns. There's all over compositional climax, and these were terms that I would read about when I was reading in books about de Kooning, like all over compositional climax, and trying to understand what I was going to bring to the table as an artist. But I think it's just my personal aesthetic. I think what ended up happening, how I got to the forms that I'm creating, was this idea that I had of being able to tell the story of somebody's interpersonal character through the parts and shapes that exist within their body, internal human anatomy. So I would look in these, I would go to medical college at UC, and I would look at these really awesome books that would be illustrations, graphite drawings of the human body and innards and all that stuff. And I thought it was just amazing. I thought it was really cool, like this organic biomorphic stuff. And Arshile Gorky was an artist I was looking at. And I was like, man, I want to do that. I want to have a burst of energy come out. Then just one evening when I was taking advanced drawing, I didn't want to paint anymore. I was doing paintings on paper. And this is after Scotland, and I was just really trying to focus in on what are my forms about. So I did graphite drawings, and I really just focused in on just this Cubist-inspired guitar, everything. It was just what I am right now. And it just became a series called Anatomical Rhythms, which kind of which definitely still play into the work that I'm doing right now. The guitar is a feminine form and masculine form. I play guitar and it has that vibe to it. So it's my inner spirit in a way. Now, I'll draw other subjects, other forms that might relate to plant life, and the flower and vase relates to my father and all that stuff, and that whole genre that I'm doing with still life within the flower and vase. But the core of it is this rhythm, this inner combustion, this energy within me to get out my voice.
So you mentioned drawing in the context of that, and when we talked last week, we were just talking about drawing because I know this really a passion of yours, and I know you draw a lot, and you go back and forth between pre-planning canvases and not pre-planning canvases. But you mentioned something the other day. You talked about drawing from the well.
Yes.
Which I just love that expression. The idea of taking that word and going, okay, we're going to dip into yourself through your drawing and see what springs forth.
Yeah, it's an honesty. It's like getting to the root. I think there was a time when I would allow, and I think there's periods of time maybe in my career, now that I think about it, where I allow color to describe things too much. I like color defines the line, color defines the shape, color defines this, that, and the other. And I think I have to get back to the root of it. Like, I'll bring it up. I was thinking about this when I was playing guitar the other night. I have these headphone sets that you plug in, I just got this. This is the greatest invention. If you guys are guitar players and you want to practice, you don't want to disturb anybody, you can get this little device, okay? And you put it into the jack of your guitar and it plugs into your headphones. You get all the distortion you need. No cords, and you don't bug anybody else. Well, the headphone set didn't work. I guess it ran out of juice. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, I don't care. I'm tired of distortion. Because distortion was that color that wasn't able to allow me to see the notes. And so I picked up my guitar because at the opening I was talking to a friend of mine who was standing in front of that painting, Chris Lee, who used to do sound for bands, and my band in particular, when we played. And I was just talking to him about it. He's like, do you talk to the guys anymore? I'm like, no, I don't talk to my band anymore. But I'm still trying to write these really cool compositions. I go, but I'm not competitive like I was when I was in the band. And I just got to get to the root of it. Well, the root of it was earlier this week when the headset and the distortion left. And it was just me playing the notes on acoustically or whatever. And it's really finding the soul of the note itself. And that's what drawing is. Drawing is the root of, for me, finding the essence of my forms and what they're really about. One quick thing, I'll stop. But there was an artist who called me who does, and she, I guess she met me on Instagram, and she, was asking questions and tips on how to do this and do that. And she's like, I just can't get this abstract stuff. I just can't understand it. I do surrealism, I do this, I do that. I just can't get the abstract stuff. I'm like, well, it's nothing to get. I go, you draw a triangle. Then you draw a circle next to the triangle, and maybe it overlaps it. And then you draw a swirl that goes like this, and maybe you fill in this, and then you leave that blank. I'm like, what is that? And she's like, I don't know. I go, it's just a triangle, it's a circle, it's a square, it's a shape. That's what it is. It is what it is. And once you just actualize what you're doing and not what it is what it is. And that's the power of line contour, closing your eyes and just going at it, and then waking up and making sense, and then taking your head away from it and then going in and out. It's really a true, pure sense of not overthinking, over conceptualizing, and just getting to the root of what you want to create. Are there comfort zones in doing that? Certainly, like anything. But you just play games with yourself to try to create something different every time.
Mm-hmm. Do you have some drawings here?
Yeah. I guess I'll start with, let's see what we got here. Since this one's right here, this was the initial sketch for this particular piece right here. I didn't know what this was going to be. I just drew it. I didn't know if it was going to go here, like this. You know, I didn't know what. I just wanted to create something. And I left it off to the side. Who knows? This could have been, wow. These are earnings. Wow, these are earnings from 2021 on the back of this. Wow, I didn't know this. So this is a long time ago, 2021. Who would have not? Anyone would have known? All right, and then like,
looks like it was a good year.
yeah. Does the IRS know this? You know?
Yeah. Did you fill out their forms?
Yeah. So, all right, but the thing about it is, when you actually look at this drawing and you look at what's happening here, it's not everything. The bulkiness of these shapes are not here, because drawing doesn't mean I'm going to get to the color that I want. Drawing doesn't mean, it's just it within itself. So I'll give homage to Emily Moore. Emily Moore, I believe, is the artist. She's on Instagram. She was a recipient of a Summer Fair Award. She does these really great installation work with cut paper, but she also does amazing paintings. And I really love how she just did these rhythm in her leaves and stuff like that. And I was like, I want to do something like that. And so I looked at this idea and this, you know, because I didn't think this was enough for this. And so I started off with like this rhythm of these black leaves coming in. And then when I came to this form being on top, it became this thing that, you know, that the cubists do, deconstructing the form, pushing and pulling things that work, pulling things that don't work. Cynthia Locker, you know what I'm talking about. You know, with the assemblage work and sewing, you kind of just dissect the foreground and the background. And that's what happened here. So let me see what else we got. This is just another example, and you guys can pass this around. Feel free to pass this around. That's just another example. You can hold up real quick. There's paint. I don't know. No, I don't want to do that. Yeah. We're not passing that one around.
Is that their social security number?
This one is not going to be a drawing yet, but I love this one. It's pretty cool. I don't know what I'm going to use it for, but it's a simple example of a line drawing. You have drawings in here, paintings in here, drawings in here that are heavily rendered, that are pushed to your extreme darks and extreme lights, right? So it's a finished idea, a finished product, you know. But then again, that is just a line drawing. That might become a painting. It might become something I lay on the background, foreground. We don't know. Now these, and I'll pass these around. What started giving me the confidence about when you asked me for a show, or not asked me for a show, you invited me to be a part of this experience. I was in a process, or just got done, working on a commission for Children's Hospital where they wanted. I've done a lot of stuff with Children's. I've done 64 paintings that are also in the critical care building. And so they've come back to ask me again to do this project where it was a call to artists, but I didn't think I was going to get it. They're like, we want silhouettes. Do you have any monochromatic artwork? And I didn't really. I had these drawings, but then so I did a color filter on my, you know, cheap version of Photoshop, which is called Photoscape. And I just selected, you know, brown, and I made everything brown and did all this stuff, and I turned it into them. And I got the gig. So what ended up happening, was they asked me to do silhouettes. The project was to do silhouettes about community, about what Avondale is. And they know my history of working with the community of Avondale. We're doing not only a Children's Hospital project, we're doing, I think, 9 murals in Avondale. I just got to doing the Elephant House mural last summer with Jalen over there. I saw Jalen. There you go. And what ended up happening was I started doing these silhouettes, which you know, when you think of silhouettes or you Google, and you can pass these around, but you Google silhouettes and when you Google silhouettes and stuff like that, you see like these big blob of shapes, you know, the real distinctive idea of positive and negative space. When really, when I started thinking about silhouettes, I just draw a line, like that is it. This began, the silhouette began with the line. So it really started freeing me up. And so what they're doing with this project, they're gonna sandblast this on squares on the ground, leading up to a new pavilion they're gonna build in like a couple of years or something like that.
So just almost like a bas relief?
Yeah, it's probably gonna be the color of the floor here, but it'll be on the sidewalk, which will be of course the gray cement. So, but anyway, I started thinking about minimalizing my forms, and I wanted to do just a black and white show. We talked about doing a black and white show. And then I was doing some more work in color. I was like, I don't want to do that, but I still want to try to work with the idea. And so I wanted this show to be distinctly different from the work I was doing at Isley Gallery. And I think it came off that way because I really wanted both shows to be distinctly different from each other, but I wanted this to be kind of like a return or a celebration of the abstraction without any recognizable imagery. There are some things that relate to the cityscape that you'll see in the first room and maybe the vase over there, but this is, my Ality is the core of who I am. It's like, I have a pastor that I listen to on YouTube, and he talks about mankind and what man was before the fall of Adam, this sense of organisms just floating in space, like almost like fish, like Darwin's fish, just these organisms just without shape or form, just existing and flowing within the ocean or whatever. And then, then things become actualized, through the fall, and then reality, what we know as reality, the reworking, the reprogramming of what we are. And I love that whole idea of ality, like getting to the true sense and essence of who you actually are spiritually. And drawing does that, and so devoid of color, what you're actually hearing things, and it's not just colorful, because it sounds good. Sustaining note distorted sounds great, right? But when you actually really push into the rawness of the note, and when it's not distorted, that's when it becomes the purest form. And you have to ask yourself, is this good? If this is good, is this hot? Does it look cool? And you rock it out from there. So.
How long would one of those drawings take? Is it days or depends?
It depends. I think I pushed back and forth with him for my photographer, Jay, just walked in. Hey, Jay, can you hear me? Is that Jay?
Yeah, he's back there.
I should have my glasses.
He's looking for
And there's Jared back there. What's up, Jared? And but yeah, basically, he shot him like the first time, when Paul was like, I need some images. I was like, well, shoot this, Jay. I think this one's done. And I would change my mind. Well, this is not done. And then, like a month later or 2 weeks later, I'm like, I gotta get these done. And so I'll just start working on it. I'll still keep working on them. So you can really crush out one in a day, but you're always pushing back and forth, looking at what's working, what's not working. And like my dad would always say, you draw light. No, this is an art teacher that said that. Draw light till you get it right. But my father would always say, don't be so heavy-handed, because you can also push back into it,
Yeah. But going back to, go ahead, Gail.
Yeah, I have a question. When you're working on a show like this one, do you work on all of these pieces simultaneously, or some of them simultaneously, or do you do one and then another and another and another?
Well, usually what happened was, this was probably just like, the Isley show. They were all kind of working at the same time. And so the oldest pieces in here are these two that I began like maybe around this time last year. These the Playing in the Park 1 and Playing in the Park 2. And they were ideas that came from an event that I participated in with Black Art Speaks, where if you're familiar with Ziegler Park and the wonderful murals that are on the ground, Black Art Speaks contributed in making that happen. So we did kind of like a brainstorming session with the community near, I think it was a week before Thanksgiving, so it was cold, man. And I remember being there with paint markers and these little plywood pieces of wood or whatever, and having kids come up and draw the initials of their name in abstract shapes and forms. So basically an M, then you flip it around, M-I, and then you flip it around, C, and it becomes this line work that happens on this piece of paper, or piece of wood, and then it's not supposed to, you can't spell your name like that. It's not supposed to be, that's my name, It's supposed to be in an abstract shape and form, and how to show how abstract art is taking something that you know and making it into something different. It's how I teach kids that. And so those two pieces are based on some of the line work they did in the background. Then in the foreground is, of course, my line drawings that you'll see like this, breaking up the space. Some of the colors I remain true to what they designed, and some of the colors I switched up. But I'm always appropriating from different areas and different places. So those are the oldest pieces in the show. But as far as actually still working on stuff, I mean, I was working on the big ones like days before the show. Yeah, I was working on like literally days before the show with paint on my arms and varnish, and actually, because I mean, you go, if you want it, you go for it, you know what I mean? And if you try to give yourself enough time to make those decisions, that might change. But I mean, I was going for it till the very end, and even up till the show, I was painting on those two small ones over there, because I know I had people that really were interested, and I wanted to provide. So that's what we do. So I remember when we were loading up on a truck, Tiffany and I, that's my wife, and she was varnishing that one up front, and it was still kind of, she's doing a second coat, and I'm just like, honey, it's so thick. And so we had to put outside and let the sun beam down on it so it'll dry. And we bought a box truck and everything. And so we just shoved it in there. And then I pulled like the plastic off the wall and then laid it on top of it, and then put that one face to face on it, right? And so, but nothing happened, it all worked out, but I was just praying like, God. As I'm in the car, I'm hoping, she pulled off ahead of me, and I'm thinking, man, I'm hoping that it doesn't stick. And if it does stick, we'll fix it, we'll make it work. And then, as she's at the end of the street, the back of the box truck is open. And so I'm just like, I'm calling her, I'm like, Tiffany! And she's like, she didn't know, then she stops. And then she just laughs, she's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm like, it's okay. I'm like, yes.
Hello, Paul.
I do see a lot of music in your artwork.
Yes.
How significant is music in terms of your artwork? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, I think it's a big thing. I think it's more or less symbols that define who I am, and the idea of rhythm and movement and passion. In architecture, there's a lot of architectural forms that kind of resemble rooftops in a way. And when you turn some of these triangles upside down, you might even see that kind of structure happening. I think it's a big deal, because I think all of us listen to music while we're creating. But for me, it's kind of like the cross that I bear, the symbol, my icon, my style in a way, my aesthetic. But I think what it is with music while I'm working, sometimes silence is really good. But I remember listening to a lot of John Barry. If you guys are familiar with, he's an orchestral pop composer for a lot of famous movies that you guys are familiar with, Dance with Wolves, the James Bond themes, all that stuff. And I listened to a lot of that, Ennio Morricone. So this very, like, when I'm getting ready for a show and I'm thinking about a show, I'm listening to a lot of passionate, really serious stuff to keep me focused, keep me in tune. And it's exciting. It's exciting. It's a great thing. I mean, because I care about what I do,
Awesome.
and I love what I do, and I love how just a good composition, whether it's going to the movies with my wife, and just seeing the connection of scenes and actors and actresses, just things that an artist will know, but also a good critic will know, or somebody the audience, people who are into the arts would know. Those are the same things that kind of just inspire me to just keep doing it, Yeah,
Awesome.
it's awesome.
I was thinking earlier, just as you're talking about going from the drawing to the painting, that there's so much improv that goes on once you get on the canvas. You've got the structure, but then when you're just riffing on the structure at that point, so it's got a real jazz element to it as well.
It does. It does. You have a push and pull. It doesn't actually become the same thing. I would like to do more. Thank you. Appreciate that. I would like to maybe do more planning, that drawing as a plan, and I'm afraid if I do, it will take all the fun out of it. But I don't think so. I think there's for the next body of work, I think there's strong intention for me to do some planning, but I don't want to over plan to where I'm hesitant and making heavy decisions. Because when I work on the floral stuff, I'll sit on the background, like I'll look at, I have like a whole encyclopedia of Art Deco backgrounds I want to do. And then different color combinations that what would look good for the Art Deco background. Then I have these drawings that become the floral arrangement. Then I have this library of vases, and sometimes I'll just sit there on a painting and I'll keep working on other stuff, but I'll just sit there and just be like, which vase do I want? But so there's a point where over planning can kind of impede sometimes, but it's important because it has to feel right or you just don't do it.
Do you go through dry times as opposed to, I can't stop, it's just coming out?
I think the way I book myself and put myself in positions and take on opportunities, I think it just automatically starts flowing. It was like after I got done working, one of the pieces that was going to be in the show, I just wasn't liking at all, and I just didn't want to face it or look at it. It was just awful. I was just gonna paint over it. And Tiffany was like, "No, don't do that. We'll cheer it." And all that work, I'm like, "It doesn't matter. I don't like it." And then I come back to the studio, and I just turned the painting around like I don't even want to look at it. I came back to the studio with everything gone, and I was just like, because Isley still has all that stuff over there. I haven't picked up all that stuff, and all the stuff here, and I think there's some stuff everywhere, and I'm just like, okay, I turn that painting around now. That's my passion, and I don't think it has anything to do with the next body of work, but it's just I want not so much closure. I just want to work, and I think that's what it is.
The mural on the Elephant Building is so huge. I mean,
Which building?
the Elephant Building.
Oh yeah.
How do you do something that huge?
Well, it starts with this. It's 135 feet long, so I had some paper that was long, and we have a table in my studio that's long. It's about 12 feet long. So I just rolled it out and just started going at it. I think I wanted elephants to be in particular spots and areas, but in order for me to get into the groove of abstracting the forms of what I was doing with Indonesian culture and those patterns, I just started just going at it. And so that's what I did. And after you take the long drawing, you scan it, then you blow it up, and and like Jalen was a part of that process, and you put graphite on the back of it, and you put it up to the wall with we learned not to use green frog tape because it rips the primer off. Jalen was watching me; she was laughing too. Like every time I take it off the wall, I was like, get all upset about this, But yeah, you adhere it to the wall, and then you etch into the wall like a printmaker, and then it really now you can do the whole thing where Artworks does, where you do the grid system, which is totally fine, but that takes forever. I'm not doing that.
So that's how you did that huge.
That's how I got the drawing done, and then you pre-mix your colors. You already have an idea of where you want the colors to go, and you just rock it out. You hand a teammate some dark green, and you say do all the dark green on the first floor, and you hope that when you come back they don't have red in their hand and nothing dark green, which happens 60% of the time. Because kids today, it's all about choice. It's all about I identify with green, but now I'm identify with red. Even though you're paying me. Anyway, it's all sorry. It is what it is.
Go ahead.
When you're applying the paint to the canvas, do you start with the background and work toward the front?
Yes. Yes, I make sure the background is brought up to a certain level of where I feel. I was talking to you about this. Like, I was looking at this painting and this poster and was just getting heavily inspired by both of them for working out the solution with that painting I didn't want to mess with. And that's what I do. It's just like you walk away feeling so good about that background, as if it's going to be it has to become your rock. That background has to become your strength, your foundation. And then once it feels good, even though you're going to cover it up with something else, you might have to come back to that. It might even inspire to something else that may not even be there. Especially with the way we work, the abstract artist stuff. Yeah.
Did you have any other careers?
Oh yeah.
Did you do anything else?
Well, after graduation, we all have different goals in our lives, and I think my first goal was to not become an art school casualty. So after art school, I just got a job at an electrical warehouse on the west side of town. My buddy Aaron Mogenberg got me a job there, and his uncle worked there, and I just pulled electrical parts by day for some time, and then after that, I was still doing art events. My partner at the time, Robin Harrison, she had this idea. We did this festival called Urban Arts and Culture Festival, The Blast, and the Myrick's helped out sponsoring it, and a lot of great organizations and private sponsors sponsored it, and it was a great festival. See, there was a time in Cincinnati history where you couldn't play hip hop on Fountain Square. They built the only music that was allowed was anything but hip hop.
Wow.
There was a lot of. She worked on a documentary about the civil unrest in Cincinnati in 2001, and she wanted to do more. And it was a great documentary. And actually, watching the Elements documentary a couple of nights ago, when Elements, the hip hop school here in Cincinnati, they mentioned that pivotal point in Cincinnati history. Where the Timothy Thomas shooting and everything like that, where there's a lot of civil unrest here in Cincinnati. Everybody was looking at us like, what's going on in Cincinnati? It's everywhere, right? But we live on top of each other here. Somebody from New York was making fun of, Cincinnati or us, or during that time, a little bit after that, and they were saying like, wow, you're just finally going through these problems. I know we've been going through these problems. We actually live on each other. We don't hide in our boroughs, and we don't, with our big segment of our own. We're others on top of each other, and there's going to be tension, and there's probably going to be more, and that's what it is. But I'm proud to be here, and I'm proud of where the city's going. But I kind of derailed. But the point I'm trying to make is, she wanted to show urban culture in a positive light, and so did I. And so we did the Urban Arts and Culture Festival, The Blast, and we brought exhibitions to the West End. We had, before Photo Focus, we curated an exhibition featuring every gallery on Main Street. Back in the day, we talked about this on Main Street. If you all remember, there were several galleries. You had Marta Hewitt, you had Flowers and Beyond, you had Mainly Art, you had the David Smith's gallery, Design Smith Gallery, you had Base Gallery, you had Pendleton, you had all these things happening. And probably some of them leaving out Enjoy the Arts. And it was great, but we had a photography exhibition and provocative photography exhibition in every gallery. So we did a lot of great things. So I got not a degree, but I got into art marketing and promotion and marketing, and that landed me a job for Media Star Promotions, promoting a brand. But art education was always something that was important to me, because it was a way for me to communicate with others about what I do and share my gift. And so throughout even that, and even working at the warehouse and working with Robin, there was always an art educational component in my life, whether trying to incorporate that with what I was doing with Robin, or even just still what I'm doing now. So yeah, those are things I've done. I was an art teacher at St. Francis for 7 years. That was fun. And down here in Ocean Rhine. And right now I'm the artist in residence for the Taft Museum of Art's Artist Reaching Classrooms program.
Awesome.
They have an interesting thing where myself and Adoria Maxbury are the only artists they selected for this year because they're making it, we're doing the work of what they used to have, a team of artists. We're just going to like 4 or 5 high schools, each of us, lecturing and getting the students to put together a body of work.
Awesome.
So that's fun, that's exciting. And I'm pumped up, like I'm trying to get these teachers out here fresh back in school, God bless them, I know. And I'm like trying to get some of them to schedule on time. I'm like, I'm Cedric Michael Cox, I'm here for the job. Like, come on, book it, book the class so I can visit you guys.
Yes.
And so it's been, art education's been that way to support my career, but at the same time, just reach out to others. And then working with the Blast Urban Arts and Culture Fest, not Blast, but working at Black Art Speaks, working for Black Art Speaks, there's plenty of education opportunities that I've been a part of and that we all are a part of there. And it's cool. It's just, you're involved.
You did an interview for Arts Work a couple years ago.
Yeah.
It was during the pandemic because you and Colleen were about 8 feet apart from each other. But I was really struck by a line you said in that video, which is you got to give to get.
Yeah.
And that seems to be consistent. And then you said the other day we were talking, and I just asked you about where does spirituality come in your life, and you were just talking about holding yourself accountable to your work.
Yeah.
And that being, this positive requirement to fulfilling your purpose. Mm-hmm. And that felt like a very core belief in you.
Right.
And working with young kids, it's like we all, you hear all these things about how work ethic has changed, and
right.
There's a lot of distraction and stuff like that. How do you address accountability with students, or even at that point, young teachers? Being on time and things that maybe were a little bit more at times, not literally, but beaten into us in the culture we may have grown up in as children.
I think you try to find those things that make them passionate about what they're doing. You give them choices, but you try to create projects and jobs and opportunities for them where you make sure that their voice is being heard. Now, how do you do that? Unlike maybe with the kids at the Avondale Youth Council, when they're getting paid, but they're wanting to help you with the elephant mural, and you have them, or they're not. They think they're wanting. Some of them are. You invite all of them to come, and only a few show up. How do you get those few that show up to engage? And you just step by step, and you encourage them. The things they're doing good, you're honest. You tell them what they can do better, but you just encourage them. That's how you keep them motivated. You find a way of talking to them. They're there. They care. It depends on the group of people you're talking to. They care if they're doing an after-school program, or after doing everything else and everywhere else they can go, be on their phone. They want to be with you. So it's the whole idea is to keep them there, keep them interested in you. Now, when I was working at St. Francis, let's be honest, there are kids there that have no interest in art whatsoever. They have no interest in you. They have no interest in learning about what's going on. They've just had an argument with the teacher in the previous class, and they just want to sit there. And you know what? You just let them sit there. You just let them be. You just make sure they're not disrupting the class. So there's so many different scenarios. But I think finding that likeness that you have with each student and trying to get into their interests and what they like. I used to always, I was a decent art teacher when it came down to St. Francis, but I was always studio oriented with my practice while I was teaching. Bad guy. So I would just pass out these printouts of Picasso, Paul Klee, John Biggers, Romare Bearden, and just be like, what speaks to you? I like that one. I'm like, cool, well then do that. But today you're just gonna do the background. I just want the whole thing red. And I'll have them come up and get their red and they'll paint the whole thing. I'm like, that's all you're doing today. Just sit down, relax. And it's just like, that's like me and this dude. That's all you're doing today. Just sit down, relax. And here's some markers, here's some crayons, do your thing. Just start planning out how you want the other colors to be. Just do your thing. you just keep it mellow. You just keep it mellow. It's just, it's all about product in the end. You want them to produce solid work, for them to feel good about it, for their parents to hang on the wall. And sometimes when I go into Kennedy Heights Art Center, I brag, and there might be a few students who actually have worked with me before in the summer camp or something like that. And I'll say, how many of you guys worked with me before? And a few will raise their hands. I'm like, now how many of you guys have parents that still have your artwork framed because we made something very special? And they'd raise their hands. I'm like, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. In this class, you'll make something your parents will be fighting over. And they get divorced when you go to college, whatever happens, they'll be fighting over it. And that's what I do. And that's what I do because I care. I want the work to look hot. Because I want to be the best art instructor. I want to have the hottest stuff. Because I want to be the best. You know, I'm on my own terms. I'm not going to change my style. I'm not going to, you know, put my finger to the wind, see where the political pulse of the country is going. I'm going to do what I do my way. I like a true modernist painter. That's what it is.
Daniel?
Sort of a segue from that, I think. So somebody like Charlie Harper or his estate decided at some point, my art's very recognizable, I can put it on anything and sell it successfully. Your art is becoming that way, I think. Do you foresee that happening? Would you allow that if the Cincinnati Zoo said, we want to put this mural on t-shirts?
Oh yeah.
So
we talked about that.
As long as it's supporting something, or is it just what it is? I mean,
yeah, we talked about that. I mean, that's one of the things. And matter of fact, Andy, thank you for reminding me. I need to get to them about that because
Just a small percentage.
Thank you. I'll cut you in on it. But no, that's important to me. I mean, I don't. Let's be honest here. You know, this is serious, sophisticated work, and everything I feel like I do is strong and sophisticated. And there's some things that are more marketable than others because it has recognizable imagery. It has a connection to a larger organization because it has familiar themes, ideas, colors, structure. I mean, the big long one, we were talking about dissecting different sections, and actually, maybe this part will look good on the mug, but I really like the last one we did, which is the shorter one. That is, it has a yellow background, it has all the original elephants that were not my made-up elephants, just trying to get through the project. I had time to, you know, really dissect, because like the zoo, the elephant house people were like, well, we want this elephant, like the look like that. So I actually, you know, made it look like the elephants, the second one, which I really like. But that, you know, I wasn't thinking about marketing it when I created the designs. I think about making something that looks great. I think my work is naturally accessible because I want to be accessible to everybody. So that's what it is. I want people to get it. So it just naturally comes out with the work. So yeah, I'm all cool with that. I mean, I'm totally cool. This stuff on t-shirts, I don't know. I don't think so. But I do like there's this artist named Jin Do, who's an LA graphics designer, who's been just as influential as Paul Clay has. And I'm sure she's inspired by Paul Clay, but her name is Jin Do. And I believe she's Chinese, and she's in LA, like I said. And she does these flat color digital designs that are just when I discovered her, it's just like inspiration. It just gets me going in the studio. And I could see maybe something like that, the silk screen, maybe certain sections, parts, being accessible for somebody on that level. But I think that takes away the magic of what it naturally is. It becomes everybody else when it happens. There's a point where the rendering of how I render things, the pushing and pulling of the improv that makes something special that you just can't mass produce. You know, it's that special thing that has to be on that wall, presented as the work of art, is what it is.
Well, I just want to say, if this ever makes it on a shirt, I'd like it. Make that happen.
Yeah.
So this could go on forever, but you know, I want to just open it up to more questions from everybody here, and so go forward.
So you mentioned collaborations. You obviously did that Artwave collaboration where they said, well, we want these Cincinnati iconic images. Your original Taft residency, you said, okay, we're going to take this Taft painting and then you're going to do your version of it. Do you ever do consignments for corporations or individuals that they ask you to do something in particular?
Yeah, I did.
Instead of just creating for a show like this.
Yeah, I did something for Procter & Gamble for the African Ancestral Group. That's not the full length of it, but they are great people, and they asked me to do it. And a buddy of mine, G Horton, actually, they asked G to do it, and G, they were like wanting him to paint. He's like, I'm not a painter, but you can try Cedric. And so I was an abstract guy. And so, I am the abstract guy, right? And so I know that when they actually sat me down, they were like, well, we've seen your work, it looks great, and you just want something that looks really good. And I'm like, you guys probably wanted something more liberal, don't you? And I'm thinking that to myself. So I'm like, I'm gonna knock your socks off. So I did this wonderful imagery, Art Deco, a little bit of Art Nouveau involved in it, of a young lady, doing this, and I thought it was just, I love that piece. Oh my God, I love that piece. Because it's about thinking, using your mind, accelerating your brain. It was just really powerful, strong piece. So when I do that, I do tap into figurative stuff. I do tap into some corporate stuff, but I make sure that if they're asking me, they know what they're getting. They know that this is what I normally do. This is the well from what I'm drinking from, or drawing from, and that's what it is. And that's what I do. So, but I take this project seriously. Yes.
So how would you say your current work, or say the last 5 years, is different from the first 5 years of your professional art career? How has it evolved, or did you fall into this genre pretty early on? And then I guess even beyond that, what were the key takeaways that you received from the Glasgow School of Art, which is an amazing building and impression that I heard about fire?
Yeah. It was. Yeah, I was a year right after that, And but yeah, it was. What I got out of the Glasgow was this. When you're, and a lot of us who are artists, we know this. Michael Cox, and there's a lot of artists in this room. David Eastep, Cynthia Lockhart, and we all know this, where you've been singled out as the artist in your art class. You've been singled out as somebody that's really special. Leslie Shields, Paul Wiggins, and there's more in here. I can't. And of course, Paul. And but you keep, there's a rhythm that happens where you keep on getting singled out. You keep on getting interest in what you're doing. The rhythm, the passion keeps going. People are still interested in what you're doing. You get singled out, and there are amazing things that happen. So that Glasgow School of Art thing, I really needed it at the time. I was getting into a lot of trouble here in Cincinnati, hanging out with the wrong crowd, and I came to art school. I think there was a disconnect between the people that I went to high school with and me further on pursuing college. There was a disconnect, and which causes conflict between people, and identity issues or whatever. I think because of that opportunity and me taking on the opportunity, and then me just knocking it out of the park, it just made me realize I got to take this art thing seriously. And so that's when I started turning down the distortion, turning down the color, started taking advanced drawing class, and the idea of drawing, that's when it started changing. So it was a self-realization of, I have a gift, I'm still getting recognized for this gift, don't blow it, and also let's get into the drawing, let's figure that out. Now as far as the first 5 years, that's what spawned out of this first 5 years were 5 years of intense drawings that were maybe half the size of that painting, that were really, imagine the foreground and background of the drawing that you see up there being one. Just a labyrinth of heavy rendering, a lot of ebony pencil, a lot of movement, but not really movement, just what I thought was movement, but just really, really tight space. And so that's the first 5 years. And then the last 5 years, I would say it's a combination of everything. I think all the experiences that I've experienced, I incorporate the drawing, I incorporate the cubism, I incorporate what I learned from working at the TAP, from looking at luminous paintings of George Ennis, all those things. When I want people to come to my shows, I want them to see a variety. I want them to understand and see the process, but I want them to see a variety of genres within painting. Now, I want to take it a step further. I want to get into, you know, sculpture. I want to get into what you call this wall relief stuff, because I did some of that when I was in college with ceramics. But yeah, I want to see what happens. I want to do it all, because I think that's the only way I'm going to stay interested. I'm still interested, but I know that I want to keep you interested as well.
Any other questions?
Yes.
I don't have a question, I have more of a comment. I first saw your work at Gallery 708 when it was downtown. And not long after that, I was on your mailing list, and you actually did, I guess this is to show your graciousness and when you teach and bringing your joy of your art to other people. I don't know if you're required by Gallery 708, but you did a little class for about 10 of us, right? You could sign up, okay? So what it was is there were 7 or 8 people on your mailing list that came in. I'm not an artist, so I just appreciate this stuff, right? So there's like a few people that were probably truly artists that were getting to know stuff, but you talked about your work and you showed us, you know, walls, and then you actually gave us little, I think it was like 8 by 10 maybe line drawings of yours.
Really?
Yes. But I just the way you know.
You're like,
No, all we did with them was you actually had us like create our own painting, remember? So it was an outline, and you were supposed to learn how to, you know, you talked about it, and then you're, you know, by automatically within that hour, we were to become famous, great artists like you. But the point is that your graciousness to us, because like I said, I don't know if you're required to do it to be there. And here we are, a bunch of novices just hanging out, but you were so nice to all of us. And it was great. That was the first time I actually heard you talk, you know, or that I had become familiar and heard you talk. And it was just very gracious of you to talk to all of us little rank amateurs there, probably coming for, you know, to socialize or whatever, or to have, of course, a glass of wine and some food. But therefore, we learned more about your art and, of course, how hard it really is to do something like that. You know, you hear people say, oh, it's abstract. What's that? And then you're like, no, because here's your chance. You know, put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah,
it's right here in front of you.
It
doesn't
tough,
look like it.
It's tough work.
Yeah.
It's tough work. Yeah. But now I remember that tournament, and I remember that, and that was fun, and that was a good experience. I was late. I don't know. I remember showing up there. I was late, and it was a tough day. None of my paints. I think I left my brushes, and I was really rough. I remember that. But it was a good experience. And guys, if you want more, here's the sales part. If you want more experiences like this, I am now teaching at the Kennedy Heights Art Center every Tuesday afternoon from 1 to 3 p.m. starting this Tuesday for the next 8 weeks. And it's not like every week, you know, it's not like, you know, Game of Thrones where if you miss a session, you're messed up. It's really mellow. It's really cool. It's called Their Art, Your Vision, where you guys, your favorite artist, your favorite movement in time, your favorite, it could be digital design, it could be anything. It could be a picture, a portrait of your grandchild, whatever. I'm gonna help you get there. I'm gonna help you render it. I'm gonna help you make it happen. And yeah, you'll learn about some of my techniques, how I cut corners, make things happen. And then maybe start all over again. I mean, you might screw it up, and you might have to be like me and paint over something. But that happens. But it's a cool, fun thing, and it happens at the Kennedy Heights Art Center starting this Tuesday from 1 to 3 p.m. And so there's still some open slots. It should be lots of fun. Register. Call the Kennedy Heights Art Center today. Register. It should be cool. So, and then come to the closing reception.
Yep.
If you guys want to see some more work.
You know, the show goes through the 29th. We're going to do a closing on a Sunday instead of Saturday, just to extend the day of the show a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, all the artwork is available for purchase, so certainly talk to me about that. And, any other questions?
Oh, Cedric, just another comment. We are 3 teachers who taught with your mom.
Ah.
So we grew up, or you grew up before our very eyes. And we need to tell you, Cedric, we need to tell you how very proud.
A photograph of a young Cedric.
Oh, my goodness. And your mom, you know she
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It means the world to me. And my mom was a school teacher and super lady. Thank you.
She was a super classy, yeah, just warm, gentle, yeah.
Well, thank you all very much. I'd like to do one more thing before you all go. I'd like to get a photograph of my featured artist with the crowd.
Okay.
So we've got a group shot. This has been a great crowd. And sorry I didn't have enough seat for you folks back